Good morning, everybody. I am your grateful neighborhood addict named Connor, and this is today's daily reflection. July 5th, a new direction. Our human resources, as marshaled by the will, were not sufficient. They failed utterly. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all our activities. Alcoholics Anonymous, pages 45 and 85. I hear the talk of the weak-willed alcoholic, but I am one of the strongest-willed people on earth. I now know that my incredible strength of will was not enough to save my life. My problem is not one of weakness, but rather of direction. When I, without falsely diminishing myself, accept my honest limitations and turn to God's guidance, my worst faults become my greatest assets. My strong will, rightly directed, keeps me working until the promises of the program become my daily reality. Hi everybody, so take number 4 on this video today. I have been fighting technology all day, or this video would have been out much sooner. But real quick, a shout out to my friend Deb. Love you, Deb. Hope you're doing okay and having a good day. So today's daily reflection. The first half is all about humility and grace, and the second half is about will. And I think that's where a lot of people, myself included, can get tripped up. The problem isn't a strong will. The problem is an unsubmitted will. A strong will directed by ego can become stubbornness, pride, or control. But the same strong will directed by God becomes perseverance, courage, and faithfulness. I think what this reading is saying is having a strong will isn't a bad thing. We just tend to put it in the wrong place sometimes because clearly, no matter how much will you have, when it's directed at a substance like drugs or alcohol, it's too much for us to handle alone. And that's what I think it's talking about with the weak-willed alcoholic. That will alone was not enough to break the power of the addiction. And if my will is insufficient, then God's grace is sufficient for me. Now, think about the amount of effort that addiction takes. You know, the planning, the hiding, the rationalizing, and recovering from consequences and hangovers, and then doing it all again. That takes determination. And all of us addicts and alcoholics definitely have that. When we really want to use or drink, nothing's going to get in our way. Recovery asks us to just redirect that same determination towards honesty, prayer, service, and growth instead. It's almost as if God says, don't lose your fire, just point it in a different direction. God doesn't ask us to have a weaker will, He just asks us to use it for good. So step 7, right? This is why step 3 comes before step 7. First, we decide to turn our will and our lives over to God's care. Then in step 7, we ask Him to remove the defects that keep pulling our will back towards self. And what it seems to me is that step 7 is about asking for grace, especially in our relationship with God, by removing some of the things that get in the way of getting closer to Him. And so that brings me to 2 Corinthians 12:9. My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. And often that second part is left out. Notice he doesn't say, my strength appears after you fixed your weakness. Now, I couldn't manufacture sobriety on my own. I mean, you guys know my story. I was smoking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I was working a court program, smoking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, going to court blitzed on Thursday, and detoxing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, pissing clean in a cup on Monday, and then doing it all over again. I mean, if that's not determination and a strong will, I don't really know what is. I did that for 8 months without getting caught. So no, I couldn't manufacture sobriety on my own. And today I can cooperate with it. I can surrender to it, and I can ask for help. But the strength to quit itself came from outside of me. And that's grace. That's God providing what I lack. Now, when the reading says my worst faults become my greatest assets, man, that sounds nice. I'll take a double serving of that, please. But I think it's actually true, at least in my case. You know, my addiction is becoming empathy for other addicts and alcoholics. My suffering is becoming compassion. My experience with manipulation is becoming discernment. And even my years of depression have given me this sensitivity to pain that seems to come through whenever I talk to and meet somebody else who's struggling. And those aren't the things I'd have chosen, right? But God seems remarkably good at recycling what we thought was wasted. And that's exactly what God told me was the purpose for my suffering, is to help others, because that hung me up for a long time. I kept asking him, God, why did I have to suffer so much? Why was there so much pain? And that's exactly what he told me, is that you had to go through that so that you can help others who are hurting. You can recognize others that are in pain and know what to do to help them and make them feel better. And to be able to empathize and to understand what they're going through. So to help others, that was the reason. And that's quite a profound reason for suffering, man. I mean, geez, what a way to make things worth it, And that's exactly what God specializes in, taking something bad and making something good out of it. So hope for today, right? One small takeaway from today is that it's easy to think, geez, if only I weren't so broken, then God could use me. But both recovery and scripture seem to say the exact opposite. God often says, give me your brokenness. That's exactly what I build with. And I think that's incredibly hopeful. And a note for newcomers, if you're struggling with the concept of willpower, you're not failing because you're a weak person. You're not a weak person. You're just trying to win a battle that no one was meant to fight alone. And your will still matters. You choose to go to meetings. You choose to pray. You choose to call your sponsor. And you choose to help another addict or alcoholic. Those are all acts of will. But you're no longer asking your will to accomplish something it was never meant to accomplish on its own. Thank you so much for listening today and for allowing me to be a part of your journey. I am your grateful neighborhood addict named Connor, and I'm wishing you another day gratefully sober. Until tomorrow.